Apparently step one is drain the fluid. So we're draining the fluid. the easy way. What's up, guys? Today we're working on the Jeep, but we're not actually working on the Jeep. We're working on Jeep parts. So this is an Atlas transfer case, and we need to change this guy, the put shaft. The reason we're changing that is because of the transmission he's running has a different output shaft. I always do a test fit because this is something we wouldn't do. Yep, look at that. Bam. So that's the primary reason that we're digging into this thing today. We're also going to inspect, see if there's any damage, make sure everything in it's freshened, ready to go, seals are good. We're going to change these guys too because these are going to this style output shaft, output flange. So we're going to get into it, start tearing it apart. I want to call it out. There's no like major scoring or anything on here. The thrust washers don't look too bad. They don't look very overheated or anything, and all the teeth and everything look pretty good. So now we are to the what would be the input shaft, and what we're going to do is we're going to pop the snap ring off here and then we'll pull it out. But now's a good time to look at all the synchros. They're not too rounded, they're still sharp on the tips of them. Don't see any weird discoloration on anything. So I'd say that this transfer case probably lived a pretty easy life. I'm sure there's other people out there that know more, but to my knowledge and to what we've done in the past, this doesn't look bad at all. I don't know that I'd mess with it. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. So far so good. We're gonna keep on going. The old stuff's out. Got the old shaft, got the old bearing, old seal, everything's out, and we're getting ready to press the new bearing in, put the seal in, start putting this one back together. Everything looks good, so there's no reason for us to replace any of this stuff. Like Chad mentioned earlier, it's all nice and sharp still. There's no real rounded edges to anything, and these thrust washers aren't burnt. And everything looks good on this shaft. So all the parts are good. So we're just gonna reassemble. Should be good to go. So what I did is I lined up the new bearing under there, and then I put a rag between the two and lined up the old bearing on top of it just to help it go in, because then you know you're not pressing on it unevenly and you're not putting all the pressure on the bearing. Ideally, when this presses in, you want all the pressure on the outside. To clarify, he's got the new bearing underneath that. Yeah. And this is the old bearing. So we're utilizing the old bearing to get the new bearing pressed in. As you can see here, it's not a super tight fit, but at some point I'm gonna have to stop because we don't want to press the old one in at all. And I think that means I'm not perfectly lined up. So I'll take a little pressure off. Shift it over. And that's probably it. Oh, see, we got to go down just a tad more there. Yep, just a little bit more. What I'm just going to do so you can actually see, I will go ahead and clean this off so I don't get anything in the new bearing. Set this guy on there. Now we can watch how far it goes. You could also heat up the aluminum if you don't have a press. And you could probably freeze the bearing, and I'd be willing to bet money that it just falls right into place. Yeah, we've done that with all kinds of cool, like solid mount bushings going into subframes. It's a really cool trick.
see it doesn't want to go anymore.
Yep, that's it.
So, as long as this bearing didn't get stuck, which it didn't. What you always do with your old bearings is you throw them in a thing under the press because you'll need them one day.
There's all kinds of races and all kinds of stuff down there that work good for pressing stuff. Here's actually a perfect example. That's just a random race.
And you can tell we've welded on it and stuff like that in the past.
So, but we use that to press the old bearing out, or to leave a gap so the old bearing could press out. So just cool little tricks we learn along the way.
And you would think that two people who do this shit all the time would own a decent set of snap ring pliers.
Yeah, we need some snap ring pliers desperately.
But we're going to make it work.
Yep.
Transfer cases all together. We swapped the input flanges. We got the input shaft changed and the bearing, all new seals. So it should be solid and ready to go in the Jeep here soon. You'll see that got a new nut here. We got to figure out the torque specs, so we'll get these torqued here shortly. But new flanges are on, new seals are on. That's both sides. This thing looked great, ready to go in, and nothing's slowing us down now. So now we get to bolt that to that to that to that. Coming up.
Got the Jeep in the garage. Got the front end pulled off. Took a couple seconds. So we're attaching the T-case to the transmission, and then we'll wheel the motor out, attach the motor and the transmission together, and we're gonna set this thing in here. Hopefully it fits.
That's a very big hopefully.
We've got motor mounts that we're gonna use that'll go here. So we'll grab those, start piecing all this together and get this thing in.
So, we're putting an LS motor in the Jeep. Crate LS3, 6L80, both brand new from GM. And then we have the Atlas transfer case as well that you just saw us go through. I don't want to say rebuild, but you get it. Danny's dad chose this because he wanted reliability, and he really wanted the 6-speed because they drive really nice. So far it fits. This went in without any headache at all. We definitely didn't fight it. There's definitely not a transfer case taken off now.
We definitely didn't have to drop the axle way down. Transfer case, headers.
So the manifolds don't fit. The oil pan doesn't fit.
Oh yeah, that too.
We're still figuring the rest of this out. We got to build a custom trans mount because we moved everything for the suspension and all that. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's going to be sick.
Don't worry. All this stuff is just shoved out of the way.
He's lying to you. No, we're plugging this old ass harness.
Yeah, that's not staying like that. This stuff's getting fixed. This is, tubing, and so engine bay will definitely look cleaner than this is all I was getting at. But we're just test fitting the motor and trans and T-case, making sure we don't have to cut down the trans tunnel or in the floor or something like that before we go any further.
We're gonna put in a tap shifter, which is like the factory shifter for the 6L80. We haven't convinced them to do the Holley standalone yet, but we're working on it. And no, this thing's gonna be pretty cool though. This Jeep's had a lot of stuff done to it, and there's still a ton to do. This is kind of one of the little slower projects we're working on, but it's going.
It's getting there. It's getting there. So that's it for today, but that's not it for the rest of this video. I'm sure we'll just pick up where we left off.
Next thing we're doing is throwing the transfer case in, clocking it, because Atlas allows you to rotate it as much as possible, and ideally you want it as flat as possible because it gives you the most clearance under the Jeep. If somehow we can get away with doing like a flat bottom on this thing, it'd be awesome. So we'll get it clocked and figure out what's going to fit, and once we do that, we can build a trans mount, and then it's actually bolted in here, and we'll probably leave it somewhat like this until we get a pan on it, because then we could do the pan while it's all suspended in the air and everything like that. So not too bad, but a couple complications as always.
Yep. So that'll be the next step, and you guys will see that here in a couple seconds, because this isn't it for the video yet. Yeah, boy.
All right, so output is about center with the floor of the Jeep. We're within 1/4 of an inch. And you could see how close this is over here, and when Danny pushes up the bracket, he's fighting the axle a little bit. You can see how hard it's hitting the transfer case.
All of this right here.
All of
is
that.
hitting the T case. And the T case, we're in the back of the bracket is in like the middle of the T case. So that's how far forward this whole bracket would have to go to get past this lip up here. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also we've noticed that, hopefully this works. This is the back cross member, and with the old setup, the back output was about here on the floor, according to a kind of a crappy old picture we have, was about here on the floor in relation to the output. So now this had to be notched right here, and as you can see, it comes up now.
So now it's gonna hit.
Now it's gonna hit even worse, and I wonder if we're gonna have to notch like all the way back here if we try to run it with everything this far forward. And the reason all that's that far forward, there is like 5 inches of a hole in the firewall, a little divot that the motor used to sit back into. But now you could put your whole hand back here. Look how much room's back there. So that's that the whole motor transmission transfer case is forward of where it was by a lot, because the motor can't come back much more because there's about a finger's width here until it's going to hit. And then for the pan, you could see that the sump is really far forward. It's a rear sump, but it's a really big rear sump. And then if you look right here, that's all gonna crash. And here's probably your best view here, is that it's gonna hit the pumpkin at bump. And this is about where we're at for suspension travel right now. We had to bring this down in order to get the motor in because it was just hitting. So this is only, I don't know, not very far, 5-6 inches away right now. And then once tucking it up, I don't think it's gonna clear.
All right, guys, so basically what it comes down to is that the T case needs to be different. Atlas makes another T case that will move it back 5 inches because it has a doubler, basically, so another set of gears to lower the gearing in front of the T case, so it'll move everything back, and that will pretty much solve our problem. There was a couple other solutions, but we weren't stoked on them, so that's the route we're gonna go. And we're gonna order that from Atlas, so it won't be here till around September or sometime. Obviously too, you can see in this video that there's some other problems like oil pan, exhaust stuff. We already solved the exhaust issue. My dad ordered some headers that will fit in there, and we already test fit those. Those are clearance good, everything's good on those. So we have oil pan issue we'll have to come up with, which we already kind of figured was gonna happen, but the reason we tried to set it in here is we're like, hey, let's figure out and let's see what exactly we need before just assuming that we're gonna need it. So anyways, in the meantime, as you'll see right now, we jumped to a few other things, and that way we just keep moving forward on the Jeep. So here we go.
Today, we're moving the wheel arches on the XJ. We articulated the suspension and saw that it rubbed. At bump, we don't hit, but at bump with the axle crossed up, we did hit. So I'm gonna show you what we hit on this side over here. We were rubbing right here. We built this whole outer arch to match the way that the body has been cut. And so now we need to move the inner arch to match the outer. We were hoping it would clear. If we put like a little spacer on the wheel, it probably would, but we're gonna do it because it'll look better in the end and it'll come out nicer. So we're slicing this open, moving the arch back, and then we're coating everything and it'll look really nice. So you can see on the other side that we've already started this process. Yesterday we sliced it open, moved it back, traced it, cut that, and so now we can kind of get ready to start tacking it in place and building a little filler panel for here, building a new attachment for the seat belt. But you could see the arches that we created last time, and these things came out great. Really stoked on this because now we can fit a 40 in something that was meant to have like a 30-inch tire, if that, maybe like a 28-inch tire.
Now you can see how much cleaner this looks too than compared to the other side.
Yeah, so this side looks a hell of a lot better. So this Jeep's been a lot of work, but it's pretty cool how it's all coming out, and this came out great. We had to cut the arches around some cuts that were already there, but man, we really cleaned them up. I don't know if we have a picture of how they were before, but
We do.
trust us, they're a lot better now. So yeah, it was pretty fun to shape this, to make the arch that we had cut, and to weld it in place, and then now we can build the inner side as well.
This piece fitting in here pretty nice. Got a little gap there that'll push over once we go to weld it, but sitting in there pretty straight. We had to notch this corner right here to fit around the filler neck tube. And there's an old hump here. The reason this hump's here is there used to be a spare tire on the inside of the Jeep. So there's a little hump, can't really get rid of that. This side's fitting pretty nice. We're gonna tack it in, get it to where the other side's at, and then we'll go through and fully weld both of them. All right, so it's the next day. Got both tubs put together. Pieces are welded in. You can see how much better this clears in here now. That whole corner that was in here is gone. There was like a whole piece here. So that looks way better. Now we are putting the wheels back on. Gonna roll it outside, and it's gonna go on jack stands right out there so that we can get underneath and just start completely stripping all the old undercoating and all the crap that's under there, because it's gonna get Pour 15, which is a rust preventative, on the underneath and the whole inside of the Jeep, and then it's gonna get bedliner on both sides as well. That's what we're doing. That's our next step. Once it's all coated, we'll be able to put the suspension back under, bring it back in, and then we'll be jumping to some other things on the Jeep. So we didn't film much just now, but I think this guy's face explains it. Turn. There it goes. Yeah. So, stripping all the old coating off the bottom of the Jeep. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah. All this. It's all the undercoating and dirt. So, stripping all that off. That's why we look like raccoons. And then we get to coat it. We'll hopefully have it coated this week.
Our boy Victor's coming over and bedlining the underside and the inside of the Jeep.
Yep.
After we pour 15 in.
So, got to do the dirty work first, though. So,
Yeah, it's so much crap in my eyes.
yeah,
This is fantastic.
in my nose too.
Yeah. Definitely not getting cancer.
All right, it's windy out here. Alright, so that's pretty much it on this video for the Jeep. Turned out sick. It's looking really good. Got the suspension back under it.
Monster trucking right now.
It's monster trucking, no weight in it. So the next few things we'll be working on, getting the LS motor sitting in it, we'll build a trans mount, start wiring in the computer and stuff like that, figure out all the wiring.
Some
Interior stuff, what else?
Those are probably the next few things. The rest we'll save.
Yep.
Put in the video later.
Probably cooling system, fuel system, stuff like that. Cool. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
Peace.